The Fortune 100 global speaker, named among the top 50 global data visionaries, and one of the most influential women in technology, with clients across 24 countries and 5 continents, including Microsoft, NHS, and Virgin Atlantic. Jennifer's expertise spans across AI, data strategy, and digital transformation. Holding postgraduate degree in AI and cognitive science, she has authored 3 books and been featured on CBS Interactive and BBC. She's also a passionate advocate for diversity in technology. Jennifer diverse keynotes on AI leadership, digital transformation, and business intelligence, drawing on over 2 decades of global experience. So you guys, you already know that you're learning from the best of the best, right? And I'm so excited to have Jennifer on this with us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Jennifer. It's so amazing having you here. Thank you for making our time out of your busy schedule to be on this session with us today. All right. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. All right, great. So guys, I'll be handing over to Jennifer right now. Trust me, you're going to learn a lot. Feel free, if you have questions at any point, you can ask, type, or yeah, when she's done, she'll take the questions. Thank you. Over to you, Jennifer. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for that wonderful, wonderful welcome. I'd like also to say thank you to Amdari and the team. So that was a wonderful presentation, lots of enthusiasm, and lots of expertise shared. So thank you so much for doing that. So now I have to try and do a good job as well, because my colleague at Amdari already set the scene. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time and attention. I would like to take you through some things that I think are important, and also some skills that I think are timeless. Now, we all know that technology changes, but what I'd like to do is talk to you about skills that are timeless, and they will do you well in every single job. So what we'll do first of all is we've already had an introduction from about me, so you don't need to know about me, but you've already got the details. So the first thing I'd like to do is give you, before we start to think about the future, is to think about the current job market for technical professionals. Now, as you probably are aware, it's a very fluid environment, it's very dynamic, and it's driven by rapid technology advancements. And there is a need for increased skills across different industries. And the reason for that is we're seeing a rise in digital and transformation, and we're seeing a need for things like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and data analysis. There's often some challenges in aligning your skills with the specific demands of the industry. So I'd like to talk about data fluency to help you to think about how you can become data fluent, because data underpins artificial intelligence, it underpins data science, it underpins cybersecurity. So by becoming an expert in data, that allows you to have a very general skill. And once you have a general skill in place, you can then specialize in an area that interests you. So I think when I'm looking at hiring people or holding interviews, technical proficiency is important. And the team at Vendari have shared with you some ways that you can hone your skills in terms of technical proficiency. But it's also important. It's also important to demonstrate adaptability, problem-solving skills, and good communication. So having a practice at some of these projects that have already been mentioned is a really good way of demonstrating your problem-solving activities. So one of the key trends in the job market is a growing emphasis on continuous learning and upskilling. So it used to be the case that people were knowledge workers. So what happened was, people would work in one job and they would become really experts in a particular area. Now that has changed, and what's happening now is people are moving towards becoming knowledge workers rather than information workers. An information worker works with the information that they have. A knowledge worker is someone who can learn, unlearn, and then relearn the skills and do the research in order to do a particular job. Now, so if you think about becoming a knowledge worker, a candidate that can quickly learn new tools, languages, and frameworks, and looking at things like certifications is also good as well, because that can help to boost your employability. So you can get hands-on experience, some ways of doing that through projects were already mentioned by the Mdari team. So there's lots of great ways that you can actually show that you are a knowledge worker, someone who is adaptable and willing to do research and self-motivated. These are all great terms to put on your CVs as well, to put on your resumes, in order to show that you're more than a technical brain. You're also a brain of somebody who can adapt, learn, and share that information as well. Okay, so two main things, just a quick summary. So the overview of the job market is currently that it's very hot. It's an area that's constantly changing, and I can totally understand that people find it quite confusing. Don't know where to start, or don't know how to move forward and get a job in a particular role. The main thing is that it's all about attitude. Now, I would rather have somebody who's got the right attitude than somebody who doesn't have a good attitude. Now, if I have somebody who wants to work in a project, they have a good attitude, but they don't have all the skills, that is a good person to have actually, because if they've got the right attitude, then they will learn those skills. However, if I've got somebody with all the skills who isn't a team player and who doesn't want to share information, they're not they already think they know it all. And it's difficult to work with people who think that they know it all, because they're not going to learn. And we learn truthfully on every single project. Okay, every project is a learning exercise. I've been in IT for over 25 years now, and I'm still constantly learning. And I think that's an important thing to highlight, is your ability and your thirst to learn new skills and learn about new areas of the business. So just a few things, as the Mdari team have mentioned, highlighting your technical projects and your achievements. So that's something the Mdari team can help you to do. And you've also got customizing the resume for different job roles. Some job roles may require more of some skill than another. So what you can do is have different resumes, different CVs for different job roles. So if you're going for a data scientist role, that may have a different emphasis than a data engineering CV, for example. Excuse my dog in the background. So now, writing an impactful cover letter. Now, in an impactful cover letter, it's important to be polite, and just politeness, and also, it maybe sounds silly, but grammar check and check your spelling as well. Now, if you are not confident of your written skill, you can use websites like Grammarly to help you to check through your grammar as well. Okay, don't use ChatGPT and then copy and paste it into the letter. It's easy to tell if people have used ChatGPT. Make it more personal. So if you are using ChatGPT, obviously use it as a starting point to get you to a place, but then personalize it, adapt it, make it in your language. It's a good place to start for ideas. But if you've just copied and pasted the whole thing, people can tell. So it looks like you've not put much effort or thought into it. What you can do is build a little library of cover letters and CVs, and constantly improve and optimize. And remember to keep it up to date as well. Maybe put in a calendar invitation, maybe once a month, just to go through and update your CV and update your cover letters. Okay, so networking and professional development is something that people find sometimes difficult to do. And I know sometimes it's something I struggle with. I'm actually quite a shy person, even though I am presenting here. So it can be quite difficult to know where to get started. So one place I recommend that you get started is on LinkedIn. So when you update your Mdari profile, make sure and update your LinkedIn profile as well. Keep them consistent, so you've got skills in different areas. So you can do that. Now on LinkedIn, there are lots of groups, data science groups, artificial intelligence groups, data engineering groups. Join those groups. But it's not enough just to join and read the comments. What you can do is post things yourself and also post comments on other people's posts. Even if it's something simple like, thank you for sharing that information, I really appreciate it, and maybe ask a follow-up question or make a comment on what you think about it, whatever someone has said to you. So I would also try and make sure that just log into LinkedIn and maybe I do it every single day actually, go in, comment, post maybe an article that's interested you, try and share content, and engagement's important as well. So if you can attend industry events and meetups, that's great. Not everybody can do that. I'd also think about building a professional presence online. So the Mdari team have also already mentioned how you can build that professional online presence using their platform. So that's something to think about as well. And you can keep it consistent. Now, I've already mentioned challenges that you might come across when you're thinking about your employability or your career. But let's have a think about, what are the business challenges? So what does the future look like for businesses, and what skills do they need? Now, when we think about systems that use data, they're often very, very complex. So we can see that we often, in businesses, we end up with a proliferation of data sources. So people have data all over the place. That can be Excel even, it can be databases, it can be file buckets like Azure or AWS S3 buckets. And what happens is businesses tend to add on layers and layers and layers of new technology and lots of data. And then they just get more data. And then they just get even more data. So I see data as being the lifeblood of the organization. It's something that every single business has. So if you become an expert in data, then you will understand the business at a more fundamental, granular level. So you can understand the data sources and think about, how do we integrate those as well, so we can join these together. So many organizations are struggling with skill gaps. And the reason for that is people don't always understand the data very well. So if you can cultivate data fluency skills, that will really help you. So what we can think about as well is in businesses, sometimes people have a resistance to change. So what that means is sometimes people don't like the adoption of new technology. They've got accustomed to what was there before. Now, resistance to change is actually something that happens in business quite a lot. People who are comfortable with the way things are and don't want to learn new things are sometimes quite resistant to change. So sometimes that's the culture of the organisation where people don't want to change and adapt. So unfortunately, that's an area that is quite difficult to solve. Excuse me a minute, I apologise for the noise in the background. I'll just close that door. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm sorry, there's some noise outside. So what we can do is when we think about data is if you work for an organisation that's where your teams are uncomfortable about change, you need to embrace change because the change is coming. It could be a new technology, a new data set. It could be maybe a reorganization of the way that people are doing things. So when we think about change in an organization, I mentioned that change is a constant in the job market, and it's also a change is a constant in businesses as well. If a business is growing and thriving, then yes, there will be lots of change happening. So we can think about being that person that is open to change. Now, when we talk about being open to change, what we really mean is being accepting of new ideas, thinking about it, trying to contribute to new ways, and also being open to the idea that the data is actually suggesting some changes to you. Maybe there's something in the data that is an outlier, but actually it's the start of a new trend. So another thing to think about is data quality. Every single business has got data quality problems somewhere. Now that can be with inaccurate data, the data may not be complete, and the data may not always be reliable either. Sometimes you see this in projects where you're working on Internet of Things, for example, sensors. Sensors can give off data that are it can give off too much data. Sometimes they issue duplicate data, or sometimes they miss data out completely. So sometimes the data itself is not reliable. So all of that adds up together to give you poor data quality, and every business will have it. So one area that you can really excel at is thinking about data quality, because data quality underpins artificial intelligence, it underpins cybersecurity, it underpins data engineering. It's a big part of data engineering. So if you're the person that can spot these data mistakes before they impact the rest of the business and the customer, that will make you incredibly valuable, and that's a great skill to have. Okay. So another thing to think about is, I've mentioned some challenges. So how do we come over those? So sometimes when just a quick summary before we move forward. So I mentioned a few common challenges. Sometimes networking can be difficult, and sometimes it can be difficult to know what skills to invest your time in. My suggestion would be become familiar with techniques of handling data, and then that opens doors for you for artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data warehousing, data engineering, because every business has data. So if you are someone who is familiar with ways of handling data engineering, for example, data modeling is another good skill to have. These are skills that don't go out of date, regardless of the technology. Okay. So overcoming lack of experience, the Mdari team have already mentioned a few ways of doing that. If you're already working in a job and nobody is really caring about the data, I'd suggest that you start to care about it. You can start to be that person that steps forward shows initiative, and becomes the data leader in your organization. Now, the nice thing about that is when you start to understand the data, it will put you in a position where you're more likely to be speaking to senior people in the organization, and that means they'll remember you. Okay, so it's a way of distinguishing and differentiating yourself. Now, an important thing to remember is it's an issue of continuous skill development. Sometimes when we're dealing with data, the data changes, and it's always going to be a bit like an investigation process, trying to work out where the data is changing. And it's more like an exercise that never ends. Okay, there'll always be new issues, and sometimes you'll have to revise and refine your initial data findings. Okay, and that's okay. That's part of one of the reasons that data can be difficult in organizations. And it's coming back down to having a good ability and having a good attitude and an ability to adopt change. So career growth strategies, set short-term goals and longer-term goals, seeking out mentors and career guidance. Again, I mentioned LinkedIn previously. Jump onto the groups and ask for advice. You know, it's okay to do that. You'll get some good answers, get your name out there a little bit, and always looking for new education and new certifications. So that's just some advice. I'm just going to check with the Mdari team, how much time do we have left? Because I can talk about this all day, but I'm also conscious that you have other
Yeah.
topics to.
No, we are actually, I mean, once you're done, it will just be me rounding up. So you can go ahead.
All right, okay, thank you. So I've mentioned data skills. So I wanted to give you an idea of what that might look like. So when we start to think about data skills, one area I'd recommend that you look at is known as data fluency. Sometimes you might see it called data literacy. It's another common term people use. But what that means is that people that understand the data. Now, lots of people can write SQL statements to pull data from a database table, but they can't tell you what the data means, and they can't tell you what it means for the business. So data fluency, data literacy, you can go and Google up these terms and look for groups on those on LinkedIn. It requires people who speak the language of data, not just the nuts and bolts of putting the SQL together, for example, but people who understand what the data means when it's been pulled out. Now, data fluency means being a skilled producer of data products. Basically, you can go in and understand what data is required and what the data means when we start to put it together. So it also means having that ability to navigate conversations about data discussions. So when people are making decisions, it's good to think about what data supports that decisions. Does the organization have the data to support that decision? So an example might be in your organization, you see that you're seeing lots of repeat customers, but you're not seeing lots of new customers. Now, for a business, that's a problem because you should be trying to see how many new customers you can start to get. So you can raise that as an issue. You can start to say the proportion of new customers is going down, and that means the proportion of repeat customers is starting to increase. And ideally, you want to be trying to get new customers. And that sort of thing is quite easy to check in a CRM system. Who's a new customer, a first-time buyer, and who's been buying from us more than once. So that helps you to start to think about your customers, how many times they buy from you, and how can you convert them from being a new customer to a repeat customer. And you can get all of that information from the data. But to do that, we have to have a good understanding of the data. Where is the customer data? How many sales have they got? How many times did they buy? That kind of thing. But these are all great questions. And these in some ways are not technical questions, they're more business questions. So you're not simply just handing someone an Excel spreadsheet with the data and saying, there you go, there's your data. What you're starting to do is read the data, speak the language of the data, and perhaps make some insights and thoughts into the data. And these are just examples where your advice and your insights, it's all learning, can become really useful. And that's more of a business mindset. And that's something that will make you really useful in an organization. People will want to deal with you more. And that gives you more opportunities to learn and to contribute. And it makes you more successful in your job as well. So data fluency goes beyond the data, into the context and the opportunities in the data. So if you can be that person that says, actually, I've noticed that we are not seeing as many new customers, we are seeing more repeat business. Now, repeat business sounds good, but we need new customers as well. Then you can be the person that points that out. And so businesses sometimes can become very fixated on efficiency changes. How can they optimize? But they're not always forward-looking. They're not really understanding what types of new opportunities are out there in the ecosystem that they have. They're too busy optimizing what they're doing right now. And they're not thinking about, what do we do after that? What do we do about the future? So then we start to think about digital transformation. And digital transformation goes beyond the technology, beyond the data, and we start to think about, how do businesses execute? How do we arrange new business processes? Are the management practices of projects relevant still? For example, are you using an agile methodology, or are you using more waterfall when you should be thinking about using more agile methodologies? And also rethinking customer relationships as well. So if you take lots of phone calls in your business, perhaps you want to think about doing more business in the website. That does not remove jobs from the contact center. What that does is give you more opportunities to sell and ways in which to serve the customer better. So what we're thinking about is the DIKW pyramid: data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. I mentioned earlier that people used to be information workers. You knew what you knew and you did your job. But now there's a move to more towards knowledge workers, people who can work with the data that they have, turn that into information, and start to put that together to make knowledge. For example, realizing that actually maybe we need to think about getting more new customers. So the base of the data is the raw data. It can be processed into information, and then, excuse me, and then that information can be then refined down into knowledge and then into wisdom. Excuse me. So the knowledge then starts to combine data, information, knowledge, and wisdom, and all of those things together supports better decision making in the team. So we can start to think about your data skills. How can you understand the data, process the information, and then apply that knowledge for the benefit of your organization? Okay, so what we can do as well is data fluency in detail. I've sort of mentioned why data fluency matters in a business, and this is a timeless skill. Data literacy, data fluency helps you to hear what the customer is saying to you in the data. And I think a future job that's important will be a data translator, someone that can take the data and translate it into something meaningful for the business, something that they can take an action on. And that really helps you to understand better what the data is telling you. Okay. I think another area where it's important is really supporting the users, the business users, to be successful, because sometimes they can get a lot of data. And we've got an example of a company here called Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone teach languages, and as just as a company example, the Rosetta Stone increased their data fluency to support real-time operational support, and they took less time to answer and resolve customer support queries, and that's a good thing. It means that they are serving the customer faster. Initially, they were taking 2 weeks to get back to the customer, and then by the end of it, it took less than a day. So that really helped the organization to improve their customer service and satisfaction. And they did that by helping their employees to become more data fluent. So data fluency is important in sectors as well. So we've just had a company example. This is healthcare. Data fluency plays a huge part when doctors are making decisions, medical decisions. So I've worked in healthcare previously with the data, so we can start to think about making sure that data is accurate. Now, healthcare, believe it or not, generates 30% of the world's data volume. Okay, when you think about X-rays and information from surgeries, for example, the data starts to pile up, and actually the data generated in healthcare is growing at a rate that's 11% faster than media and entertainment and social media combined. It's a huge area for data. So hopefully that means there's opportunities, if you're interested in healthcare, to think about becoming something of a data expert in healthcare, because the patients are going to need that. So just a quick summary, then I'll start to wrap up. So my recommendation would be is that when you're being interviewed, when you're thinking about your CV, when you start your job, and when you get that job, think about how you can contribute to a data-driven culture in these relationships as well as technical skills. Help thinking about how can you serve your colleagues, how can you develop and understand trust in the data, and if you can't trust the data, what's wrong with it? And maybe you can be a data advocate in the business. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a specific job title, but it means something that you can develop and adapt to help you to really grow in your career, not just in terms of your skill set, but also in terms of what you can offer the organisation, and also how you can get in touch and interact with leaders in the organisation. And that's a great thing to do because it gets you visible, it gets you noticed, and if you're looking at promotion, it's also a good thing to do. So, summarise, technology is only part of its success in a career. People and soft skills are important too. We looked earlier at the Amdari platform, and what that does is allows you to talk about your successes. Because the thing is, if you don't talk about your successes, nobody else will, unless you do it. You know, it's obviously sometimes your colleagues might do it for you, and your boss might tell people how good you are, but you can make that success known publicly as well by using platforms like Andari and LinkedIn to try and help you to showcase your career and your skill set. It doesn't mean giving away private information. You can think about ways that you can pitch that so that you make your contributions clear. But I suggest when you talk about these contributions, you talk about your impacts towards a data-driven culture, how you have been working with the data, and how you've been able to be that data advocate in your organisation. So finally, I want to say thank you so much for listening to me this evening. I hope that was useful. Please do look me up on LinkedIn. It's Jennifer Stirrup. My name's up on the board. And I want to say a huge thank you to the Amdari team for putting all of this together. I appreciate it, and thank you for the nice welcome that you gave me. So with that, I'm just going to stop presenting and I'll hand back to the team. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's been an amazing session. Guys, I already see the reactions. I see that you guys are already showing gratitude to the session that Jennifer just facilitated. Thank you so much. Guys, if you have any question, I'll be able to take two for her to provide answers to. So let me see if there is any question in the chat. Again, I'll just be taking 2 questions, guys. So if you have any question and you'd like to ask, okay, Amaka's hand is raised. Tomiwa, please, can you unmute Amaka so she can ask her question? So I'll take one more person after Amaka. So you can type, right? Or you can also raise your hand and would allow you unmute. So Amaka, if you can unmute yourself already, please go ahead and do that. Okay, great.
Hello, Jennifer. Thank you for a good presentation. We all appreciated what you mentioned. But the question would like to ask you is, like you said, many of us have understood the concept of maybe Excel, SQL, and the rest. And then you mentioned certification, helping you to be more visible. Can you please mention some of these certifications that could help you be more visible as a data analyst? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I would tend to look at the Microsoft certification if you're thinking about Excel, or if you use Google Sheets, you can look at the Google certification as well. So if you follow the LinkedIn Learning program, you can actually pick up certifications on there too. Now, Microsoft have got, if you go to learn.microsoft.com, they have learning pathways that you can follow, and you can earn badges and that kind of thing. So probably start with the Microsoft learning exercises and perhaps follow through with their certificates. You can also download them and put them on your LinkedIn profile as well. So you're closing that loop. But if you're thinking about Excel, I'd also look at Power BI. I'm sure it's got a data analysis certification in there as well. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name, but hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, one more person, guys. Who has a question for Jennifer? If anyone else has a question, if you don't have a question, then I believe everybody's good. I don't see any hand raised anymore, and I don't. Oh, Mahmoud, sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, please go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you to Amdari for bringing a wonderful platform as this to give us more insightful information about data. And once again, thank you to Jennifer for all the guide and information. Right. So, Jennifer, I would like to ask. I have an interview scheduled for next week as a data quality officer in the NHS. Right. So, can you give me some tips that can impress my interviewers and other actions you think I can showcase over there during the interview session that can make me make me look as the perfect fit for the job by their side. Thank you so much.
So first of all, congratulations on getting the job interview, and I wish you every single success with that. I hope it goes really well. So some tips I would have is I would maybe do some research on healthcare and data. I mentioned a few statistics. So I would do some research about data quality in the NHS. It's important not to sound critical though, just to say, every organisation has challenges with data, and you'd love to really empower and help patients by making sure that the data quality is the best that it can be. I think it's also good to consider some examples in your career where you've made a difference with data quality and explain that it's something they're passionate about. I mean, I'm personally passionate about data quality because it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can start to see the quality of the data start to get better as the project starts to move forward. So I would think about that. I'd also mention things like collaboration. Team collaboration is important for data quality, and how important it is to remember the business users, the doctors, the clinicians that will use that data. You're trying to make things as easy as possible for them so that they can serve their patients better. So I think these are a few things I'd suggest. Some practical examples that you've worked on before would really help. And maybe just showing that adaptability and that willingness to learn new things as well. I'd also mention that when you think about data quality, it's something that is very collaborative, and it's about listening skills as well, because it's not just a technology issue, it's a business issue, it's a process issue, and it's about trying to say that it's a skill which is essentially horizontal, because it works across every part of the business in order, in the organisation, the NHS in this case, to lift you up and lift up the whole organisation, is something that has a huge impact. So I don't know if that helps any, but I'd give some examples. I'd also mention soft skills, collaboration, teamwork, and I'd mention things that about data really being sort of almost the lifeblood of the organisation. It gives you that energy. It gives the energy really to the whole organisation, and it runs on it. It's a bit like a circulatory system. It goes round, and you maybe have to think about data quality as it passes through different departments. So I don't know your specific area, but if you can imagine, someone comes into A&E, they'll get data from the A&E nurse at that point, and then it'll go to the doctor, who will add in more data. So the status will change quite a bit. I think it's probably worth mentioning how you would approach a data quality problem as well. I think it's important to try and list out what all of those issues are with the data quality, look for examples, and because they'll probably ask you, how would you approach that? And this isn't just for the NHS, this is for any organisation. Think about collaboration, how you would record and log those data quality issues. Think about examples as well. And also prioritisation, because it's very easy to get hung up on examples that aren't really that important. And what we're trying to do is really help the end service user, who in this case would be the patients. One way I look at data quality in healthcare is, how would I want that data to be if that was my son on the operating table? You know, so if you think about it as, if that was my family member on the operating table or being served by that doctor, how would I want the data to be so that my son would have the best possible healthcare? And it kind of makes it personal then, because you're thinking about not just the patient as a number or, you know, a faceless person. You're making it personal then by saying, I want to give the best service possible, and I really think about the patient as being as if they're a member of my family. And what would I like them to have? I'd like them to have the best data possible. So I hope that helps any, and that maybe some of that was useful to you. But I wish you every single success, and I hope that you do well.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This has been an amazing
Thank you
session.
so much.
And yeah, thank you, Mahmoud. I was going to ask if she answered your question, but I mean, your response already confirms that. Thank you, Jennifer. It's been an amazing session. We've learned a lot, and thanks for providing answers to all of the questions asked. I'm sure a lot of people are going to really make use of the information and knowledge gained from this session. Guys, you also mentioned, feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn, and yeah, in case there is something you wanted to ask and you're not able to ask on this call, you can easily just reach out to her, and I'm sure she will provide answers to it. Thank you, Jennifer. It's been an amazing time with you here. Thanks for, we know you're a busy person, but you still made our time to be here with us. We really appreciate that. Thank you, and have an amazing time. Thank you so much. All right,
you.
guys. Yes, guys, thank you for joining the session as usual again.